Hey folks, Adam Brian Dada with the Lower Reward video series. Today's conversation on this beautiful morning is an intro to a potential 2-week self-study on habituation. If you're new to my video series, I'm going to ask that you stop this for now and go to my initial videos that introduce what is reward, some of the terminology of it, what I mean by it. It might not be what you think it is, and it's important that you understand some of the foundation of it. My videos are never intended to be binged. It's very important that you approach them maybe one a day, one every other day. Don't go through all of them, watching all of them. That's the opposite of the goal here. The goal here is for you to understand the basics and then find the self-studies that will most affect you. You don't have to watch all of them. I don't want you to. Habituation. In the most basic definition, it means creating a habit. And when we create habits, in modern dialogue and science, people always try to think that habits are bad. We always think about bad habits. Habits like smoking or drinking or porn, drugs, junk food. But one of the foundations of lower reward living is actually creating habits. And sometimes it's actually creating bad habits that are less bad than the ones we're replacing. The habituation 2-week self-study is something that I've slowly worked on over many years myself to prove if I could do it. I am not, by any means, the most low bad habit guy in the world. I have a lot of bad habits. But over the last 10 years, 12 years, I've learned to substitute my worst habits with slightly less worse ones. Let's not call them better. Bad habits are bad habits. Any religious book will tell you that sin is sin is sin. It doesn't matter if you killed a man or you thought of killing the man, it's still sin. I don't believe in sin, but I do believe in lowering my bad habit amount in order to increase my comfort and contentment. When I talk about habituation, it is not in regards to bad habits. In fact, whenever I've tried to habituate something that was actively a very bad habit, I found that it did not really help me curb the desires to turn to that distraction. And that's what bad habits are. They are distractions. Good habits are not distractions. Good habits are what we occupy ourselves with when we're bored in order to harness the hormonal neurotransmitter potential of boredom. If you've watched my video on boredom, you're going to understand today how habits, good or bad, preferably good, embrace the potential of boredom, and even how bad habits embrace the potential of boredom. When we work to habituate, as we'll go in this potential 2-week self-study, when we move to habituate activities, we do so by trying to do the same thing over and over and over again. And the problem with doing exactly the same thing over and over and over again is what? It gets boring. Have you ever tried to listen to the same song constantly? Now, if you're somewhere on the autistic Asperger's spectrum, which I probably am somewhere, except for the fact that I love to socialize and I'm not good at things. If you're on the spectrum somewhere, maybe you do it and you like it. I have a friend in the Orient who pretty much listens to one song forever, nothing else. And he's heavily Asperger's oriented. So other than that, if you aren't that far on the spectrum, have you ever tried to listen to one song over and over and over again as long as you could? Have you ever tried to watch only one TV episode? Not show, episode. If music or TV are your addiction, you'll be very quickly, but you'll be captivated by the format of the medium that you're going to use to distract yourself from doing something successful. So if TV or music are your addictive distractions, we're not going to habituate that. But maybe fashion is not too addicting of a habit. If you don't really think about fashion, except when you need a new pair of underwear or your shoes soles are flopping out, maybe fashion would be a good place to start your journey on habituation. Steve Jobs, the man who was one of the founders of Apple, allegedly, habituated his clothing. I believe he always wore blue jeans and always wore black turtlenecks, but it was something like that because he didn't want to be distracted by fashion. And one more element of consumer neuroengineered marketing is put behind him. And I actually love habituating fashion. I used to be a fashion addict a decade ago. I still like fashion if I'm spending time with a pretty girl or if I have to be in front of a crowd or an audience socializing. But on those events, I don't just go and spend money. I spend a lot of time researching and seeing what's going to last, what's going to leave a good impression without being too much of an impression. And those of you who watch my videos know I wear a lot of the same clothes over and over and over again otherwise. Or I don't wear anything because I'd prefer not to have fashion at all. If I could be here wearing nothing every day the rest of my life, I would not be bored with it. It would just be out of my head. As people break their food addictions, habituation is actually a really good end game. And we're not talking about an obese junk food addict immediately switching to only eating eggs and bacon and cheese and potatoes every day. That's not what we're talking about. Again, if a person is fit, if he's already broken his bad habits of overeating and junk food, then, and only then, does habituation make sense. Because they're past it. They no longer have to deal with that addiction. So they could say, I don't need that distraction anymore, so I'm just going to habituate my eating. And I've done that mostly. When I lived on my boat for 8 months out at sea, and I didn't have a refrigerator, and I didn't have access to grocery stores at all, the only thing I had was the fish we could catch, the grill, and the potential to trade that fish, maybe with other boaters for some eggs, some pork, some vegetables, but all I had was fish. And a lot of people said, wow, I can't do that. Well, I used to be a fat bastard, really fat, and I used to eat everything. And then I beat it. I beat it using other lower reward processes to try and acclimate myself to not getting that dopamine high off of food. And then I found myself not caring as much about food, so I was able to habituate food more than I would believe. Nowadays, I pretty much eat close to the same thing, 98.5% of calories in the year, let's say. And again, food's not a bad habit for me, so I can habituate it. When it comes to other interesting addictive rewards, I recently spoke with a guy and we were going through what his bad habits were. And one of his bad habits was he loved to try and beat his previous time record driving home. So what happened was we realized that his bad habit was that challenge of trying to make it home faster than before. And he was actually causing himself to be distracted from his goals by constantly doing this. And when I tell people that being in the car without music, without notifications, without the phone ringing, being in the car and talking to yourself, recording your lower reward plans is one of the greatest places you could be due to the lack of distractions. But this guy was constantly looking for a faster way, constantly. He challenged himself to make it home faster and faster, and it became an addiction. Now, he's broken it. It's taken a while. I think our last conversation was maybe 4 weeks ago. And now he said, you know what? It's been a couple of months. I don't even feel the urge anymore to do that. I think I'm going to stick with one path, unless there's an accident that pushes him off or road construction. And I said, good. You've habituated your drive home. Since it's not an addictive distraction, he's habituated. It's not something that he has to worry about. Habituation can come in any area of reward, and preferably it's in the areas where you don't exactly care. If you're a gym rat, you're not going to want to habituate your workout. I am no longer a gym rat. I've broken that addiction. I'm glad people are, because I love the very hot physiques on men who lift heavy and women who lift in general. I love those physiques. It was very bad for me. I have a propensity to go too hard, to push it too hard, to get injured, and my genetic structure is I'm always going to be the physique that I am. No amount of working out will work for me. But I do habituate pushing my muscles a little bit. I don't do it out of any kind of organization. I spend 5 minutes a day with some resistance bands, just pushing a little bit to keep my bone density and muscle mass, but nothing that is actively building muscle or making me cut or making me look sexy at my age. And it's just habituation. I have a little set of postcards that I printed that, based on the day of the month, that's what I'm just going to do. And it's not really a workout as much as it is stretching out in the morning, telling the muscles you still work, telling the bones they should still be strong, but not going to a gym and not like aiming for personal records or being stronger than I was yesterday or being hotter than the guy next to me at the swimming pool. So I habituated my physical fitness by not making it a goal, just making it something that I need to do, is part of my basic needs for the day, and is very basic and non-distracting, not fulfilling boredom, just something I should do. Part of this 2-week self-study is to go over all the various behaviors we have that we can potentially habituate. We're going to talk about some of them, which are very interesting ones. One of the ones that I've worked with some guys and girls both, even though I don't typically work with women, is habituating sexual relationships with their significant other. And this is a crazy one, because a lot of people are like, wow, you know, so many people are addicted to sex, but so many people are addicted to not having sex or avoiding sex. And habituating sex sounds not very loving, but guess what? Sex is a basic human need. We need to do it. We need to have it. Whether you like to do it 10 times a day, and if you don't, you watch porn, or whether you absolutely hate it and try and find any excuse to get out of it, it's a basic human need. We're going to go through all of the various behaviors I can think of, and hopefully in the comments below you'll ask some questions. Please do let me know if this is a topic that you would like to hear more about. These 2-week self-studies are very grueling to create and try and put together without any notes, without any major pre-planning, and without missing the mark on what I want to say, because I'm pretty scatterbrained. I'm a dunce and a ditz, not the brightest guy in the classroom. But I think that I've got a good topic, and I really hope that more of you will be interested in it. And once I have enough comments and enough drive to do it, we'll potentially work on it as time progresses. If you have any questions about this topic or ideas, please do comment below on YouTube. If you get a link from this on another social network, I really want you to comment on YouTube. It's much easier for me during my travels to focus on one application's comments. Appreciate you listening. I'm Adam Brian Dada, and this is the Lower Reward video series.